to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. If you are a regular listener of the show, then you might remember my guest from a couple of summers ago, Meredith Huck, a fellow Jersey girl, I might add. Meredith and I had a terrific chat about how she moved from a corporate career into interior design. That was episode 786, and I highly encourage you to check it out. I bring it up today because I'm grateful to Meredith. She introduced me to our guest today, Jennifer Ma. These two ladies are terrific friends, and it's probably likely because they have many things in common, and one of them is they both came to interior design as a second career. Except for Jennifer, it was more like a third or fourth career, but we'll get to that, okay? After moving into a newly built home in San Diego several years ago, Jennifer started an Instagram account to document how she, as a stay-at-home mom, was creating a beautiful space for her family, a space that was inspiring and a space that they all loved being in. Well, like many others that we've spoken to, her Instagram took off, okay? And then people began requesting for her to do their interior design projects. Soon she was asked to design spaces and homes around the country by her fans and followers, and her design business, Dwell and Oak, was born. Located now in Westchester, New York, and specializing in residential renovations and furnishing projects in Westchester, New York City, and the San Francisco Bay Area, Jennifer remains committed to creating spaces that celebrate family, foster togetherness and connection, and are designed for everyday living. This is the short version of her road, okay? A lot more happened leading up to the start of her business, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today, because Jennifer is much more than an interior designer. Not that that's not enough, by the way. Actually, Jennifer might be the queen of those Eric Award transferable skills that I'm constantly talking about. I can't wait for you to meet Jennifer. Here we go. Hey, Jennifer, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thank you for having me, LuAnn.
So here's the thing. We've been getting to know each other a little bit, which has been fun and exciting. And I did read about these things in your intake form, but understanding this career path, this journey that you've been on between, growing up and then now being an interior designer is a pretty windy road. So tell us about this journey of yours, your professional journey. Tell us about it, because then we're going to learn how it impacts you as an interior designer.
For sure. So I would say I haven't had a straight path for quite some time. After high school, I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. I got a culinary arts degree and became a line cook at the Grand Central Oyster Bar in New York City.
So wait, I just have to stop there. For anybody who is not from the Northeast, that is not like I'm a line cook at Fridays. Like that is a prestigious restaurant, right?
Right. We would serve about 200 people within the rush hour from like 12 to 1 within 1 hour. I have burning oil. I have burning scabs on my hand till this very day, carpal tunnel, and it was an amazing experience, but it did teach me a lot of things that have helped me bring me to where I am today.
So that was the first step in your journey. And then I guess I kind of want to know the second and the third step, but do I save my question for why you switched till after we hear all three?
Yeah, we could talk about it now. So I was an 18-year-old 18, 19-year-old girl, young, fresh out of college. It was it was a 6-month externship as when I was a line cook. And as you know, Grand Central is a very busy place. The back of the house, as many people know in the kitchen industry, it's a male dominated industry. You're
Yeah.
working holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, you are working weekends. And I was forecasting and future proofing as a 19-year-old what I wanted my life to look like 10, 15 years down the road. I knew that I wanted to become a mother someday, not at 19,
Yeah.
but someday. And what would that look like for me? I was
Mm.
working and making eight at that time. It was actually pretty good, $8 an hour. But as a college, I'm making $8 an hour, and in order for you to go, to make a decent income, you have to work your way up, and it took a lot of time. And I knew that it was not for me. I
Mm.
wanted to do something that would be able to give me a little bit more flexibility for a future family.
Mm.
So during that time, my strict Asian parents said, okay, after you graduate culinary school, you're going to go to Stony Brook University and get your health science degree and become a nurse. And I was like, okay, Dad, I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's what I'm going to do next. I head off to Stony Brook University. I complete 4 years there. I got my bachelor's of science in health sciences because I took Anatomy 101, and once I found out that you have to remember 200 bones in the hands and 200 bones in your feet, I was like, this is not for me. I am not a science person. So the easy way out was at least graduating with some degree, which led me into corporate marketing because I got an internship at Estee Lauder through the health science department. And
Oh my
that led
goodness.
me to 10 years in brand marketing at these top luxury beauty brands such as Shiseido, Estee Lauder, and Clarins.
Wow.
But kind of backtracking, why I left culinary arts is, again, really thinking about what you want your life to look like.
Mhm.
It did teach me some things, though.
Okay.
It taught me that I will teach myself that I know when to quit. Right? There's a time
Mm.
that we're especially in a Asian upbringing, you're always
Mm.
taught to work hard and study hard and do not quit. I was a competitive swimmer for my whole life, and so my parents woke me up at 5 a.m. and said, hey, you're going to go for a swim meet. I was drenched in chlorine 3 or 4 days a week after school because I was constantly competitive swimming and practicing and training. But what that did teach me is if I really, really don't feel it in my heart and in my gut, that it's okay to quit something after you've tried and put everything into it.
That's a huge lesson, right? We always think the big lesson that we have to learn is how not to quit. But I mean, when you layer on the pressure from your parents, and any kid has pressure from their parents, but you're well right. I mean, the Asian culture is doctor, lawyer, professional, and keep going. I mean, right? And
Yeah.
so learning how to quit is a significant skill, especially given all of that mixture of what you came up in, right? And your life and your experiences. Big, big thing. I'm curious, have you ever talked to your parents about having to learn how to quit? Or are they so ingrained in, like, don't talk to us about that? We get that it worked out, but we don't want to hear the quit part.
Well, that is something that I will talk about in a moment, which I
Okay, okay,
actually
okay,
can't answer that right now, but I
okay,
will.
okay, good.
S-
Okay, so but you have to come to this on your own. And I will ask you another question about that. When you did make the switch and the quote unquote the quit from the culinary to the next thing, did you know then that you were learning to quit, or were you just like surviving and it was an hindsight lesson?
I knew you have to listen to
Oh,
your intuition. My gut told me
yes.
this is not for you. But I
Okay.
gave it my all. I
Yep.
went to school, I graduated, I I did my best to give it a shot at the craziest, busiest restaurant there was.
Yes. And no one, including yourself or your parents, could say, "You didn't really give it a good shot. You only tried halfway." You were like, "Nope, I did it. I went all in. I
Yeah.
tried to be a good girl and a good cook and a good all the things."
Yes, and at that time, my parents did say you did your best, but now
Oh,
it's time to find a career that is stable, right? Because back
yeah.
then it's all about stability, or
Mm.
in
Yeah,
general, it is.
yeah.
Um, but what I did learn from culinary arts in culinary school is the discipline. I would wake up at
Mhm.
2 a.m. to serve breakfast in culinary school. If you have time to lean, you have time to clean. That's the motto that I
Ah.
have ingrained in my head when you're in the kitchen. What does that mean today? When it's time to lean, it's time to clean. What does that translate to my current business now? When there's downtime, so say December, early January, there's like this lull. That's when I work on batching my marketing content. That's when I review my finances. That's when I'm able to review where I can place some of my investments for next year. I can
Wow.
work on my strategy. So, really, it is utilizing every moment that you have to invest something back in your business.
I love that. I love that. I love that you have that built in to the way you approach things. And my question in that is there also a thought that runs through your mind if you have time to lean, you have time to clean? Is there sometimes, if I have time to lean and I have batched my marketing and I have looked at my finances, I have time to do yoga, or I have time to do nothing, or I have time to read? Like, do you also allow yourself time to take care of yourself?
Every day.
Oh, that's so
Every
nice.
day.
Okay,
So,
so we're not totally wackadoodle on this.
no, this is really only during the working hours, and so
Okay.
I'm very mindful about the quote unquote self-care, and really what
Yeah.
that means is working out 3 days a week. Getting in, wait, maybe I'm having to fit that in and waking up at 5 a.m. to get in my 3 day a week workouts and
Mhm.
meditating at night. I have this acupuncture mat from Amazon that's been a game changer for me. And so that I lay on for 10 minutes a day before I go to bed, and it helps me fall asleep. So I definitely am really mindful to listen to my body. When
Oh,
I'm
good.
stressed out or overwhelmed, I take the day off, or I take the rest of the day off and spend it with my 4-year-old son. And we
Mm.
make puzzles, we play games, and that helps me decompress.
I love it. I love it. I love it because if we don't ask that question, we have this vision of you going nonstop 24/7 because if there's time to lean, we can clean, right? So I love that. That's awesome, Jennifer. It sounds like it sounds like really, really great lessons that you learned, both the discipline and and also the lesson to quit from that experience in culinary. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you move on and you spend 10 years in marketing in major, beauty brands, again, like top shelf brands. That is one thing. You don't do it middle of the road. That is you, right? You're like the A achiever here.
I mean, if there was any dream life a young woman can have in New York City, it is
Oh.
working in beauty and getting all the free products. And it was like literally this Sex in the City, Devil Wears Prada life where you're dressed to the nines and working in the office and schmoozing and having fun and getting free beauty products. And it was
Happy hours and
happy
lunches.
hours, going out partying 3 days a week and then showing up to the office at 8 a.m. How did I do that? um, but what I will say is that experience helped me really realize that branding is so important. Investing in your
Mm,
business is so important. Investing in your brand and your website from the beginning is what really taught me that owning a business and starting an interior design business, we're a visual business. We're a visual
mhm,
industry. So it's so important that what you put out is what you're going to receive. For example, on your website, you need to have the same colors that's going to reflect your designs. you're going to have something that does a website that has beautiful copy on it and there's not a million mistakes. It has to
Yes.
be eligible fonts and colors that go together. Um, there has to be a standard that you need for your brand. And that is what I learned from my corporate marketing experience, that you really need to understand your, of course, ideal client. But again, what you put out there is what you're going to receive back.
I love that observation. I've said this story on the podcast before. I one time was at a live meeting, and somebody came up to me and said, I'm a window treatment professional and I really want to work with high-end interior designers, yada, yada, yada. And I've been in the business 20 years and I'm an expert. Like I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking. I can guide them. I'm willing to have them be the star of the show. Like, I believed everything she said. Cause sometimes people say some stuff to you and you're like, yeah, I doubt it. Right. But no, she was credible. And I was like, and the thing was, it was like a split-second conversation. She just grabbed me after I did her presentation and was like, can you tell me what to do? And I'm like, and after 2 minutes, I was like, everything seems right. Like, what is wrong? Why is she not attracting luxury designers? And my brain said, open up your website on your phone for me.
Mm-hmm.
And there it was. There was your cookie cutter Hunter Douglas provided website.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, look, I don't care how good a job Hunter Douglas does at creating website templates for window treatment professionals that don't have the wherewithal, to do it themselves. But this is not saying luxury or custom to the designer you're trying to attract. This is saying ordinary everybody else, and they're moving on, right? It's exactly what you're talking about, right?
Hunter Douglas is good at window treatments, not website
Yeah,
design.
exactly. I mean, and the thing is, it's exactly what you just said. It's like what you put out, you will attract. And so what she was putting out was, I'm one of the pack. There's nothing
Mhm.
unusual here. This is cookie cutter. And I didn't even take the time to think about it other than changing the name at the top in the donut that they gave us, to do this. So why would I think as a designer, you're going to take the time to deliver me custom, right?
Yeah.
And so
And
but it was an investment that she needed to make in herself. A good quality website's $5, $10, $15,000.
exactly. And
Yeah.
shout out to my amazing website designer, Amanda Scott. She is
Oh,
amazing, but it's the first 5 seconds that
mm,
you have for a user to go to your website to make a good impression. It really
mm-hmm.
is the first 5 seconds. After
Yep.
that, if you don't have a good website, or even if they go onto your Instagram, they're going to look on to someone else.
Yes. Agreed. Yep. I love that. So this was a lesson that came from this experience. And the thing is, you could have worked in that corporate position a year and a half, and maybe it wouldn't have been drilled in to the level when you spent 10 years and watched it, when you worked with these leading manufacturing beauty companies. See it happening over and over, the results of putting their brand out there in a particular way. And each of them have a different brand identity, right? Each of
Mhm.
those brands. So really seeing it happen in real life makes it, that's a hard earned lesson there, right?
Mhm.
Love it. I love it. So what happened next? I mean, did
Oh.
design come next, or is there something else in the middle before that?
There's one more thing, LuAnn. So after the beauty industry, I was 25 years old, and this is where this some of the challenges in my life have come into play. And so both of my parents passed away within 2 years
Ooh,
of each other before I turned 30,
wow.
which was very hard. My mom died of pancreatic cancer, and then 2 years later, my dad died of what I would call a broken heart. Um,
Oh.
but what that did teach me is resilience, right? Is that
Mm,
anything, like, after my parents passed away, I was like, what else do I have to lose? Anything that I can do in my life can't be worse than this. It can only go up from here, right?
mm.
So, taking the trauma and the emotions from my parents passing, I started working out at a local fitness studio called I Love Kickboxing. And it was a kickboxing gym, a kickboxing franchise that I really started punching my way through my emotions and my sadness through this business. And
Oh,
eventually I opened up and became my own franchisor and opened up my own franchise in Brooklyn, New York, and started it from scratch, from looking for a location, a retail location. I found a location, 5,000 square feet, vanilla box. Actually, it wasn't even a vanilla box, but working with contractors, working through New York City permitting, working with
right.
contractors, managing the entire project from the ground up, hiring up to 30 employees within the 3 years of business that we were open, and having up to 800 members at one time.
Whoa.
That was the biggest risk I've ever taken. And it was scary
Wow.
and hard.
And can I ask you, at this period in your life, are you do you have a partner, a spouse? Are you single still?
Yeah.
Like, because this is a lot.
At the same time, I bought a condo in New York with my fiance. The first month that we opened the business, we had a wedding in Mexico. I was trying to find a dress. So there was a lot of things happening, and at the same time selling my childhood home. So
Oh my
I
gosh.
did have a husband in this with me, but he still had a full-time corporate position. So
Mhm.
this was my business.
Yeah, I mean, he was there for emotional support, but he wasn't like, "Hey, you go run down that contractor and I'll run down this employee." It's like you were doing all of it.
Exactly.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot on your plate. And so obviously, like I love the hindsight of the lesson of resilience as well. I mean, these are all very challenging things that you describe, Jennifer, but the fact that you can pull a very tangible life lesson out of each is, I think, the only way we get through things like this. It's the only way we get up in the morning and are willing to face the next possibly difficult thing that we have no idea that's coming at us, because you know, knowing like I like it's so funny because I've said this before also on the show. Like I've been interviewed before and people are like, tell us about a failure. What's the biggest failure? And I have a very hard time counting anything ever as a failure. I'm not going to say that there aren't things that don't go well, that, there aren't mistakes that made, but I immediately move on to what's the lesson in this quote unquote failure. And then therefore your mindset is it's flipped immediately as opposed to sitting in it, right? Is that the same for you, Jennifer?
Exactly. It was really traumatic when it didn't work out, but we were a successful business for 3 years, and it hurt and it was painful. But I learned so much from it on what to do and what not to do. What kind of
Mhm.
business do I want now for my family and my lifestyle? And that's really important. And for me, I would say that you have to imagine what your life is going to look like every single day. Do you want to wake up and work from home? Do you want to spend time with your family? How many hours do you want to spend? Like, how many hours of your day do you want to spend with your family? Are you wanting to work around people? Do you want to work in an environment where you are working by yourself in an office? Those are really big considerations.
Mm. And so the business failed, or you decided to close it based on lifestyle?
So we closed right before COVID.
Oh.
Yes, we closed right before COVID because the franchise wasn't doing very well,
Mm.
and there was a lot of things that were happening with the franchisor, the company
Mhm.
itself. So
Mhm.
unfortunately, we were unable to sell, and we had to close. And so the
Mm.
heartbreak of losing money from that was really hurtful.
Mm.
However, we've earned it back in many other ways, and
Yeah.
I would say that you have to put things past you and
Mm.
move on, and our life
Mhm.
is so much more fruitful now than
Aw.
before.
That's it.
Yeah.
What weird timing there, huh? Because if even if you hadn't decided to close, like the writing would have been on the wall to try and survive COVID with a health club or, an exercise facility. Insanity.
We closed 2 months before COVID, so
Hmm.
January 2020, and thankfully we had a good guy clause in our contract, right? Because that is when you're able to, with commercial leases, they're a bit different than other, regularly like residential leases.
Residential,
But
yeah.
knowing that we were able to step away from that was everything, because there's a lot of commercial leases that you're unable to do that.
Wow.
And we would have
And you
closed
called it,
down before because of COVID anyway.
yeah. And you called it a good guy clause?
It's
I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's called a good guy clause. So whenever you have for example, if you are an interior designer and you are looking into a brick and mortar business, it's very important for you to have a good guy clause in your contract. And again, this is in New York. Maybe there's different laws in other states, but basically, if you need to close for whatever reason, you have no more money, your business isn't making money, your whole family passed away, whatever the reason is, you can step away from the business. And then it says, okay, maybe you're just losing your security deposit. So maybe you pay X amount, you're just going to lose your security deposit and you can walk away tomorrow. You just have to give the landlord X amount of days notice.
So regardless if you have 10 months or 12 months left on a lease, this enables, wow.
Yes. And that is
That's
in New
crazy.
York. So of course, everyone.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of that, ever.
It's what saved us, or else we would have had to like liquid our money or 401k, like who knows
Right,
what
in order to pay the contract of the rent for the next period of time that it was signed for.
Exactly. And it was in Park Slope, Brooklyn, so the rent was like $15,000 a month. Like for another 3 years, like we would have so
Whoa.
it's definitely important for you to get a good guy clause in your commercial lease.
How did you know to have that? Did your lawyer key you into that, or did you know it from another experience? Or
LuAnn, always hire others that know more than you. So our lawyer recommended that, and he saved our butts.
Yeah. Well, and that's the difference between, I think so many of us, we lean on our friends and family for expertise, right? But and if your friend or your family member is a lawyer for commercial real estate in Brooklyn, then great. But if they're a lawyer for wills and probates in Iowa, then don't have them execute your, hey, I'll just review your contract with you, right? Because that's a specialty there. Thinking about that, in my wildest dreams, I would not have realized that there was a way that you could have a clause that you could get out of 15 months times 4 years rent just because whatever happened in your life, you don't want your business anymore. That's incredible.
It's very important.
That's a great little tidbit there.
Yes.
I have to say.
Yeah.
Okay. So from this experience, which is a combination experience of losing your parents and opening and running and closing this business, you learn resilience. You learn, to hire good professionals to execute things for you. You also, I'm sure resilience implies this, but I think to say it out loud is worth it. You probably realize that you could do things that you were never capable of doing, which is it's a part of resilience. I know that, but it's active, right? Instead of I withstood it, it's I can stand, right?
And LuAnn, a lot of other aspiring designers reach out to me on Instagram and say, hey, Jen, I just want to pick your brain. I'm thinking of switching careers. How did you do it? Is there any piece of advice that you can give for me? And one of the most common denominators it's the lack of confidence that they have, or at least they need to have that confidence that you can do it too, even if you come from a corporate software sales background like Meredith Huck.
Yes.
Even if you come from a culinary background, a engineer background, you can do it through research, learning along the way. If you can go to school, great. I did not go to school for interior design, but I have had a lot of experience in business. And that really, you have to show up for yourself, and you can do it. And there's no straight path to your fulfilling career. There really isn't a straight path. And I took this saying from Athena Calderon. I'm a multi-hyphenate. I'm a chef. I'm an interior designer. I'm a mom. You can be all these different things. We don't have to follow that straight path that our parents taught us to be. You don't have to be just the lawyer. You don't have to be only a doctor. If you really want to switch careers, you can do it strategically and mindfully, but you can make that step. And you have to believe in yourself, because if I can do it, you can too. You can too.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What I don't know, we didn't understand, how do we go from teaching people how to kickbox to becoming an interior designer?
Yeah. So I have dreamt of moving to California all my life, LuAnn, from living in New York my whole life. And so me and my husband, with a 9-week old baby, brought ourselves to California. I have a 9-week old baby, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. I felt really lost, still adjusting to motherhood, enjoying my baby. We buy this new home in San Diego. It's a brand new track home. It's beautiful, it's boring, and it needed a lot of work in terms of making it feel special. So, of course, I'm sitting here with this blank slate with my baby, and what do? I start, like many of us do, is to start to put the board and batten on the walls, and then do the paint colors and post, of course I started buying things from everyone's going to kill me here, but buying furniture from Target, and
Right.
having to
We've all
start
done it.
somewhere. Then I
Mhm.
started posting it on Instagram. I posted a few things of my DIY projects. Eventually, my followers started growing. Then I said, hey, let me make a website. So my first website was jennifermainteriors.com. I think I made it myself on Squarespace. It wasn't anything creative. It wasn't Dwell and Oak yet. And then I had a friend here and there say, hey, would you like to do my home? And of course, from there, I posted one reel of a before and after of my first client project in San Diego. And it was a living room project, just full furnishings, a before and after. And I'm sitting on the sofa one night with my husband, and I was like, hey, let me figure out how to play with reels. I don't know how to use this. I'm going to upload this video and put on some music here, and I don't even know how this works. I'm sitting on the sofa watching TV with my husband. My baby's asleep, and I'm laying on my husband. I said, I upload the video. I said, it's literally been a minute, and there's about 10,000 viewers.
Wait, what?
And then a minute later, it's like 100,000 viewers.
What?
And then 10 minutes later, it was like 300,000, 400, 500, and then this reel got over like 3 million likes overnight.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't even anything special. It wasn't even like, there wasn't any renovation. It was just a gray sectional changed into a white sectional and new artwork and pillows and lighting. But it that's how I grew my following on Instagram.
What do you think? Well, first of all, how long ago was that?
This was about 3 years ago. Oh, 2
Oh,
years
so not
ago.
like in the dark ages. I mean, 2 years ago, it was, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times when somebody when I've interviewed Shay and Amber, Shay McGee and Amber Lewis, they go back, to the beginning of Instagram. And it's like, not that, to minimize what they've done, by the way.
Right.
I'm not saying, but, I mean, I even remember, I think Julia Markham, when I spoke to her, and Chris loves Julia, she was like, look, I work my butt off. I do. But I also came into it when it was a different frame. But I mean, 2-3 years ago, it was already a very loud place. What the heck was
Yeah.
it about that video that was so impressive?
I don't know. I don't know. That algorithm changes all the time. It works in mysterious ways. But
Oh
I
my
think the most important
gosh.
thing is that I continuously show up on Instagram. And
Mm.
I get a lot of my clients from Instagram and mom groups, but especially Instagram. And I think it's important, if there's any advice that I can recommend, is showing up for your followers and showing up authentically, meaning that
Mm.
I don't care if I don't have on makeup that day. I don't
Right.
care if I don't have on my hair is done. I just show up and I speak to the camera. I don't know who I'm speaking to, but I'm speaking to the camera.
Right.
When I show my messy living room with all of my toddler's toys, that's when I get the most engagement.
It's crazy. Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy? It's like, here you guys are. You're so so like talented, and you have this ability to do these completely gorgeous, beautiful settings, and people go gaga for like, 16,000 Legos on the floor. Like, it's nuts.
And
You
it's
can't figure people out.
and I think it's so important because the users, they can relate to you because like
Mm,
you're a real mom, you're a real person. Your house doesn't always have to look like it doesn't on for photo shoots, right?
yeah. Yeah. Now, so let me ask you a question. So this happens. You become an Instagram starlet overnight, okay? You end up, and I can see what happens. You get the inquiries, you started to do a little bit more work here and there. But to your point, this started because you didn't like move to California and say, I'm going to be a designer. It was like, I'm making my house a place that I feel and I want my family to feel home in. And this happens. So, was there, in other words, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's one thing when, first of all, we all know that we've got tons of examples of super talented designers that have no design education. I always call Nate Berkus out. Like, he's one of the most recognizable people that never went to design school, right? So, but the thing is, a lot of times when we hear about those stories, there's this history, this background in art, or I've been moving furniture in my mother's house since I was 4 years old, and I've been reading Elle Decor since I was 15. But here you are, and you're like, okay, I'm a stay at home mom. I don't like the way the house looks. And the next thing you know, you're getting inquiries. So, was there a moment when it was like, I actually don't know how to do this for other people? Like, how did you figure that? Now, I know you've had your business brain. We've already established all those other things that you came into it with knowing when to quit, right? Maybe it meant knowing when, like, I'm sorry, don't take on a renovation project for your first job, right? Maybe that happened. Knowing the resilience, like, this is hard and it's not what you thought it would be. Keep going. And, understanding, the branding and all of that. But what was that? Like, oh, now I'm a designer? Like, was there a moment there?
No, I did not call my design. I did not call myself a designer for a long time because I
Mm.
was insecure. I was still learning. I started doing it on my own, but I was actually good at it. And I'm going to be confident to
Ah,
say that, of
yeah,
course, I have honed my skill set over the past few years. In the beginning, of course, I was not so great at it, but I read books. I read
yeah.
interior design books. I read about scale, measurements, color theory. I window treatments. I mean,
Mhm.
of course, I mismeasured a Roman shade. A few but maybe thankfully it's only 3 Roman shades, not a whole full house full. Okay, and of course I sent that client cookies just because I messed up the Roman shade, right? Like, there's mistakes along the way. But for me, I loved what I did and I love being creative. So another thing that I failed to mention is that I was a makeup artist and I had a makeup business for about 10 years as well, a wedding makeup business. See, this is where I am a multi hyphenate and I was really insecure for a long time that I did so many different things.
Mm,
But I'm really confident and proud of myself that I took the leap and gave each one of these industries my very all.
yeah.
And so I am very creative as well. So I would say I'm not by any means the numbers and math and the finances are not my thing. And that's why I hire those that know more than me. So shout out to my bookkeeper, business by the book,
Mhm.
who are amazing, by the way. That's one thing is if you are just starting out, I would say investing in your website and brand, but also a bookkeeper is really key.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
100%.
I don't know what I would do without them.
So I love that. And it's so funny because my one stepson was a high level celebrity makeup artist in New York City, probably, well, maybe earlier when you were there. But, and he always said, oh, I'm off to paint faces. because he also, as a young person, like in all of grade school, high school, in the art classes, his art was always elevated. It wasn't anything that he wanted to do as a career. He had no desire to take classes outside of the art school, but he had scale, he had proportion, he had color sense. And to him, and I think one of the reasons why he was so super successful is because when you're a makeup artist, and you probably can attest to this, when you're working on someone's face who is 25 and beautiful and no wrinkles and all the things, you're really just making it a little better, right? Like,
It's
but when
so
you're working on
easy.
yeah, but when you're working on somebody who's 50 or 60, now you're painting, right? You're contouring, you're like minimizing, wrinkles, and you're highlighting features, and that is art. That is not just I'm applying makeup. And that's why those of you that do it as a profession, especially when you do it well, it's not to be underestimated. And so I know how much creativity and sense of color and proportion and all of that goes into that. And so translating that to your design seems like a definite Erica Ward transferable skill for sure.
Yeah, and I think everyone has to start somewhere. So let's
Mm-hmm.
not knock you have a blank space in your house and you need a portfolio. Redo that home in your own home and have a
Yeah.
professional photographer shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn things along the way, and maybe it's at your own expense and hopefully not too many other clients' expenses, but I think that you have to just try and start. So it really is about starting.
And here's the thing I'm going to tell you guys. You can go to a 4-year design school and you're probably still going to measure the Roman shade wrong because they don't teach you how to do that in school. I got news for you. They just don't. Like, that's not what they're going to teach you. So it really doesn't matter, right? It's like we're going to make mistakes when we go into business. Your point is well made. You have to have a little measure of confidence and you have to have some stomach for risk, because you're putting it all on the line. And it's so funny because when you said that, it turned out that you had an aptitude for it and you were good at it. I remember the same thing when I started working for the Vincennes and Window Works, and I was 20 years old. And only thing I'd ever done before that was I was an exercise instructor. And I had 19,000 other jobs, in restaurants and all of that stuff and all of that crap. But my primary thing that I had done is I was, a Jane Fonda exercise instructor. They did 19,000 classes a day with the leg warm-ups and all the crap. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah. So, and so when I came to work for him, what I always did was I always did sales, no matter what I did. So if I was an exercise instructor, I also was like talking to the manager of the club and saying, well, if I sign people up, can I make some extra money? And they're like, well, okay, in between doing classes. I'm like, right. And so I always was, my core belief was sales. Whatever I was doing, it was like, if I can sell, I can make money. And so when I was in between jobs, I just started dating him. He had only opened Window Works like 6 months before that, was in the basement of his house. And I was like literally complaining every day because it was the first time in my life I took a job. This was not an exercise job. It was the first time in my life I took a job that wasn't exercise or sales. And in 2 months, I was like a caged animal. I was like, I'm going out of my mind. And he's like, well, you can sell blinds for me until you find something else. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what's a window treatment? Like he said to me 40 years later, what's a podcast? I'm like, what's a window treatment? You know what I mean? Because like we went to two guys and got like curtains and hung them on a rod at my mother's house, right? And the thing was, though, you brought me back because yes, he brings me out and he teaches me how to measure and all the things. But, I'm like a caged animal. And so I got to get out on my own. And I'm not worried about that. I don't know how to do it. And I'm not worried about I don't know how to sell it. I'm like, look, if I sell it, then you can come measure the damn thing. You know what I mean? I'll measure it good enough. We'll price it. It'll be fine. So I go out and what I found out, and it took me about a year or so to recognize, geez, I have a skill for this. Like I could see scale and proportion. Whereas my husband, I'd be like, somebody would say, should we put a valance here? And I would be like, yeah, it should be 18 inches. And he'd be like, oh, we make valances 14. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm holding the tape measure up. In this space, the 18 is going to feel better. And he's like, yeah, but the book says 14. And I'm like, right, dude, I get it. I get it. We're like, we're going to go 18.
There's a time and place for guidelines.
Yeah. And it was just funny. And it was like, and then I also discovered that I could keep color in my head, which I had no idea was even a thing. But like I could look at a particular tone of a green and in your house and like, this is the color of your sofa. And I could come back to the showroom and find that green. But meanwhile, on a regular basis, the man's dressing himself. And I'm like, that shirt doesn't match that tie. He's like, they're both blue. I'm like, whoa, dude. The word blue doesn't give you, carte blanche to put anything on.
Right.
Like, that's a gray blue. That's a teal blue. That's a purple blue. He's like, you're out of your mind. They're both blue. And I'm like, okay. So the thing is, you do learn that you have these skills and these talents that are laying low, that until you use them, you have no idea they're there. Right, Jennifer?
Exactly. Yeah.
So crazy.
And I would say that one of the most important takeaways from the kickboxing business is client experience, right? Going back to making a really good first impression. Again, it only takes the first 5 seconds to make a good impression. So what I did learn from that franchise is that we had a very tightly wrapped sales process and client experience approach, right? So what does that client experience look like? Really making sure that you hold the hand of your clients, right? So even before they come onto your website, right? So the first moment they come onto your website or onto your Instagram, what do the first 5 seconds feel like? But how do you make them actually feel? Right? So say you own a brick and mortar store, or you pick up the phone and you're like, hello, welcome to Dwell and Oak. Are you smiling? Right? What kind of energy do you have? Because that is going to set forth what you are going to bring to the table after that. Right? So it's so important that you really make sure you make good impression for the first 5 seconds, whether it's on your Instagram, your website, your Instagram messages, the way you respond through emails, how fast you respond to new inquiries, but most importantly, getting into the automated client experience. I use Dubsado, again, saving your time so that I can spend time with family. I make sure that my clients I walk my clients and hold their hand throughout the whole process, but it's not actually me doing it.
Right. I hear you.
So what does that mean? I have an investment guide that I send out right before I book a discovery call. Right? So whenever the clients come to my website, they fill out the form. They're sent the studio introduction investment guide of how I work. Then they book the discovery call with me. Then they get what to expect emails for the discovery call, for the kickoff call, for the install, the goodbye packet once they're done. So I make sure that client experience is top notch. And it's like, I'm your concierge. And I make sure, that's what I learned from the kickboxing business, is to make sure that you really don't want your clients to feel nervous at any point of the process. There should be no unknowns, right? Like what's going to happen next. They should know what's going to happen 10 steps ahead of them. So what's going to happen next? You reiterate and reiterate and reiterate what's going to happen. How much is the investment? What your design fees look like. This is the contract. This is what's going to happen next at install. Where you should, where the client should be during install. So really making sure that your process is really tight, because it's going to make your life easier and your clients' experience so much better.
I love it. I love it. It is so important. And what happens is, I think a lot of times this is, it's so funny, because I always have said for many years on the podcast that you know what you know so well that you forget the parts that you're not even communicating, that you just think are obvious. And I was just rereading Heather Hanson's book, The Elegant Warrior. She was the MC at LuAnn Live, and she's such a fantastic lady. And I was just rereading her book over the break, and I didn't catch it consciously the first time, but on the second read, she calls it the curse of knowledge. And I was like, that's exactly what interior designers have. You have the curse of knowledge. You have the curse of knowing, well, of course, when we do the install, we don't want you in the house. You will get in our way. You will be nervous. You will be questioning every little thing, but you need to see it when it's all put together. But it's like, you have the curse of knowledge. You know they shouldn't be there. But I love that you're like, what to expect on the install. It's like, expect you're going to leave the house for the day. Expect that we're going to get here 8 in the morning. Expect that there's going to be champagne at the end of it. Like whatever it is that you're
Yes.
saying. But it's like, that is such a perfect example of how we assume people understand more than they do because it's so second nature and so known to us, right?
Communication is so important. And again, sending weekly check-in emails. One thing that I learned recently from the Haven workshop is I send out weekly emails every Monday to all my active clients. And whether they're in the concept phase, design phase, or we're just waiting on orders, I send them a weekly email. And I've changed the subject line from weekly status update to where 70% there, we're 80% there. It's the percentage. We're 30% there. And here's what's happening this week. Even if there's nothing going on, there's no updates, we're just twiddling our thumbs waiting for furniture to arrive into the warehouse. That has been really helpful. And my clients have said, hey, I really appreciate your weekly emails and those updates. I really appreciate that communication.
And you're describing the difference between here's where we are this week and we're X percent here has resulted in a tangible level of satisfaction and understanding with your clients.
Yeah, I've had 2 recent clients that I finished installs for, and I am literally face to face with them. And just because I've built such a close relationship with them, and this is literally when they're hugging me and in tears, and it's like this final reveal. And I'm like, what could I have done better? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that I can improve? I'm really open to feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And what are things that I did well? And they said it was my weekly emails. It may not have been the percentage that I changed, but I think that it really did help them feel like, okay, we are almost there. Because in the past, I was sending weekly updates, but then they're like, okay, but then there's no, is there an end? Like it's very like matter of fact, like this is the date, this is when it's going to happen. So that was really helpful. And it is just like, they're just like, you just made this process so easy. Both of them were like, I didn't have to lift a finger. You made this process so easy. So I think, again, really that communication, that automated client experience really helped them feel good along the way.
I love it. I love it. It's outstanding. I just, I think, number one, I want to say how much I appreciate how hard you've worked your whole life, really, even childhood, with the swim lessons and the crack of dawn and after school, all the way through all the different things that you've done in your career. And the way that you look back and you pull the ideas and the lessons from it, it's really, I think it's the difference between success by intention and success by accident, or success eluding us, is that review, that consistent, constant review of what did, like you just said about your client, what did I do right? What did you wish I could do differently? It's like you're taking that time each time you're going through a phase in your life, Jennifer, and you're saying, what came of this that was good? What did I learn that I can change the next time? It's outstanding. It's outstanding, Jennifer. I'm so impressed by you.
Thank you.
It's so good. I'm so glad Meredith introduced us.
Me too.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I don't do it a lot, steal my daughter's line on the podcast, but I'm going to steal her line this time. Is there anything that I didn't ask you, or that you didn't get a chance to say, that you'd like to say before we close out today, Jennifer?
Just do it. I'm going to steal it from Nike, but just do it. Go ahead and think about what you want your life to look like every single day, And if you are thinking to make the jump into interior design, you can absolutely do it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being with us today, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
Thank you, LuAnn.
Just do it, right? Sounds so easy. It's not easy, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. Here's the thing, it takes grit. Throughout this entire conversation, that was the word that kept popping up into the back of my head. This lady has grit. It sounds like she did from day one. She was a competitive swimmer. She went through culinary school at the CIA and nursing school at Stony Brook. Prestigious, yes. Competitive, yes. Ambitious, arduous, demanding, yes, yes, and yes. She worked in the kitchen at the Grand Central Oyster Bar in New York City, for goodness sake. I mean, that's grit right there. Jennifer puts her all into everything. And a couple of times along the way, long after going all in, she realized she needed to change course. A lot of times, once we're all in, it feels too deep. We can't imagine a way out. Learning how to quit is a quite significant skill. But Jennifer knew that she had to listen to her intuition and to trust her gut. She knew it was okay to move on. And what made it okay to move on? Well, she learned something. Even if she didn't know it then, she took that grit and those lessons from culinary school and kept them close so they'd be ready when she needed them. So she course corrects and takes the stable job in marketing, right? She was living the dream, working in the beauty industry in New York City. She learned things here too. That would also come in handy later, right? So then what happens? Life happens, right? Jennifer loses her parents. It was devastating. But again, she sat right here across from me and told me how it taught her resilience. I mean, she's something else, all right? It was in her grief that she turned to kickboxing. Take that, self-care, right? She kicked butt so hard she ended up starting her own kickboxing gym. Okay. So we told you in the title, it wasn't a straight path. My head is spinning, and we didn't even get to design yet. In each of these ventures, Jennifer was learning. Every day of our life, we are learning. You know that I talk a lot about Erica Ward's comment about transferable skills. Erica is one of my very first guests on the podcast all the way back in episode 6. And I mention her all the time because she taught us about thinking specifically about the skills we've learned in other areas of our life and making sure we transfer them to our businesses. Okay? Those skills are from other jobs, like Jennifer's time to lean and time to clean, right? She learned in culinary school, but there are also things from life experiences that she mixed in, okay? Like the discipline she learned by being a competitive swimmer, the resilience she learned after her parents passed away. Okay, this isn't stuff that you get from a diploma, from a certification, from a college, a university, a high school. This is life. So what are you getting out of your life? Do you look at the past and see failures? I hope not, because that's not what they are. These are all learning experiences. We learn as we go. And if someone tries to tell you that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I mean, come on. Like, we're all doing it. Every day you can. Just look at Jennifer and see how she got her start in interior design. You know, right? After all that, she starts a family, moves to San Diego. She thinks she's just like, gonna be a housewife. All right. But then it grows and it builds and the post goes viral. And all of a sudden she's like, yeah, I can do this too. All right. So I'm not saying all of this so that you think it's easy. I don't think it's easy. It's not easy. I know it's not easy, right? We've had quite a few guests that have come to interior design as a second career. I've already mentioned our mutual friend, Meredith Huck, but I'm also thinking about Cheryl Luckett and Darla Powell, who was a police officer, Megan Moulton, who was in pharmaceutical sales, and Sarah Lynn Brennan, who was a middle school biology teacher. And then how about Nate Burkus, came from the fine art world. We'll link their shows in the show notes too. All right. None of these people will tell you it was easy, but all of them will tell you how they trusted their gut and how they use what they learned from those other careers or life experiences to better themselves and to make their businesses better. Okay? Here's the thing. You can't make it on a design diploma or creativity alone. You have to take what you've already learned and be willing to learn more. Jennifer says she reads books, she educated herself, she invested in her business, she hired others that knew more than her to take her and her company further. And I'm curious, what transferable skills do you have already? And what are you doing to learn new things, right? Now, if you're listening in real time, there is still time to register for LuAnn University. We are starting this week if you are listening in real time. Jennifer said she took that restaurant adage, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean, and applied it to her business, using downtime to address things in your business like marketing, strategy, finance, and more. Okay, this is what you do. Now, we're only running LuU once this year, so don't hesitate. If you take a look at that roster at LuAnnUniversity.com and you know you've got a little leaning time, then why don't you consider a little cleaning time and work on that business of yours, right? Jennifer calls herself a multi-hyphenate. She's a mom, a chef, a kickboxer, a makeup artist, and an interior designer. She has learned from each of these roles. She has learned how to quit. And she's learned how to be disciplined. She has learned how important brand identity is and how to prioritize client experience. She has learned resilience. We're all multi-hyphenates. I'm a mom, a daughter, a wife, a podcaster, a salesperson, an author, a mentor. What are you? And what have you learned from each of these areas of your life, right? Jennifer, I'm just going to say it. You're one #smart lady, and I am so happy you shared your story with us today. I loved hearing about your winding path, and I'm so glad it got you to where you are today. All right. And honestly, I'm curious what will be next in your journey. It'll be fun to watch. I want to thank you, Jennifer, for showing up, and I want to thank you for showing up and listening and being a part of my winding road here on this little journey that we're on together. So thanks tons. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.